The brothers, Robert Angier and Alfred Borden, start out as assistants working under the same magician. When a trick goes wrong and Angier's wife drowns on stage, Angier blames Borden for tying the knot that killed her.
Which knot did you tie, Borden?
That one moment turns two colleagues into obsessives who spend the rest of the film trying to destroy each other. Borden develops a trick called the transported man. A man steps into a cabinet on one side of the stage and appears instantly on the other. Angier cannot figure it out. He spends years trying. He spies on Borden and tries to sabotage his shows, but couldn't understand the trick.
The same man comes out of that second cabinet, I promise you.
It's the same man.
Angier eventually travels to Nikola Tesla himself, looking for a scientific explanation because he had Borden's diary, and Borden gave him the passphrase Tesla. Although Angier acquired the machine and performed the transported man, the true answer was never scientific. Borden is two people, identical twins who made a decision early in their lives to become one person sharing the same life. One performs the first half of the trick, the other walks out the other side. What makes it one of the smartest decisions in the film is how completely they committed to it. Two fingers were cut off to match an injury the stage persona had sustained. A shared wife and a shared home. Everything divided between two people the world believed was one. When one twin is framed for murder and hanged, the other lets it happen rather than expose the secret. The trick mattered more than the brother. Christian Bale played both twins himself with no second actor. Nolan shot around it so carefully that most people do not notice the edit doing the work until the second watch. Home movies. Will Graham retired from the FBI specifically because of what the job does to you. To catch a killer, he had to think like one, and he was really good at it, which is exactly what scared him. He gets pulled back in to find a serial killer the press is calling the Tooth Fairy. Someone who is breaking into family homes at night and killing everyone inside. The investigation goes nowhere for weeks. Graham keeps asking the wrong question. Why is the killer choosing these specific families? Then he stands inside the Jacoby house and asks a different one. The killer came through a specific door, walked straight past valuables, and moved through a completely dark house, without hesitation and without waking a single person. He knew exactly where he was going. That mechanical realization that the killer had prior knowledge of the layout is what breaks the case open. The answer is home movies. Both families had sent their private film reels to the same facility, ChromaFlux Laboratory. Dolarhyde was not just an employee there, he was a high-level production chief with unrestricted access to every tape that came through. They handed him the blueprints to their own lives without knowing it. What makes this scene hit harder on a rewatch is that Hannibal Lecter gets there before Will does. During one of their meetings, Lecter asks Will directly whether he has ever seen the victims on video. Will says yes. Lecter already knew what Will had not yet figured out, that Will had looked directly at the answer and walked straight past it. Human mask. Hannibal Lecter spends most of Silence of the Lambs behind glass. The FBI moves him to a temporary holding cell in Memphis, and that is where he has been waiting for them to make exactly this mistake. The cell is less secure. The guards are older and complacent. They have never dealt with him before, which means they have no idea what they are walking into. Lecter sets the whole thing up before the guards even arrive. He arranges his drawings and papers around his desk in a specific pattern. There is only one place a guard can put his dinner tray without disturbing the pictures, and it is exactly within reach. When Boyle leans over, Lecter has already picked the locks on his handcuffs. He clamps Boyle to the bars and turns to Pembry. What he does next is why the scene never leaves you. He strings Boyle up on the bars, arms spread out, arranged like a moth when seen through the frosted glass. It is theatrical and completely impractical, which is the point. When the police arrive, the image is so overwhelming that nobody looks carefully at the body lying on the floor. That body is supposed to be Pembry, and it is still alive. In truth, that body is Lecter, wearing the removed face of Pembry. He is carried out of the building on a stretcher, past every officer in the building, dressed as the mutilated victim. Honestly, out of every character on this list, Hannibal Lecter might be the one I find the smartest and also unsettling, just because of how far ahead he is thinking at every single moment. This is one escape from one film. There are enough moments across this entire franchise to fill a separate video on their own. Psych Ward. Michael Schofield's entire escape plan was tattooed across his body, the whole layout of Fox River hidden in the design. Then Haywire got assigned to his cell, and within days he had started decoding it. Haywire had a mind that worked differently from everyone else in that prison, and he could see exactly what the tattoo was.
It's a pattern.
Michael could not let that continue, so he got Haywire transferred to the psych ward himself, which bought him time but created a new problem. A section of the tattoo had been burned off a hot pipe, and Haywire was now the only person who had seen it clearly enough to redraw it from memory. So Michael put on a breakdown. He punched the wall until Sarah Tancredi came in, saw what she needed to see, and had him transferred to the psychiatric ward. When he finally got in front of Haywire, Haywire was heavily medicated.
Who are you?
Michael had to work to even get his attention, pulling him out of whatever state the pills had put him in. When Haywire finally came around and remembered the tattoo, he also remembered everything else, including the fact that Michael was the one who had put him in there in the first place. The deal Haywire offered was simple. He would redraw the missing piece, but only if Michael included him in the escape plan. Michael had no choice. The timeline was too tight. He said yes and got the piece. Honestly, Prison Break would be in my top 3 series if they had known when to stop. Up until season 3, it was genuinely some of the smartest television I have watched. After that, it just kept going. Missing piece. This scene is early season 1, before Walter White has fully become who he becomes. He and Jesse have Crazy 8 chained up in a basement, and Walt cannot bring himself to kill him. So he keeps bringing him food, keeps talking to him, and keeps finding reasons to believe that maybe this ends some other way. Walt actually makes a list for it. Then one day Walt has a coughing fit in the basement and passes out. The plate holding Crazy 8's sandwich hits the floor and shatters. Walt cleans it up and brings him fresh food, and the two of them keep talking, and eventually, Walt decides to free him. He goes upstairs to get the key, and as he throws away his beer can, his eyes land on the broken plate in the trash. He pulls every shard out and lays them all out on the table, putting the plate back together piece by piece. That's when he realizes one piece is missing. Crazy 8 had palmed it the moment it broke. He had been sitting down there, building trust and having real conversations, waiting for the second Walt unlocked that chain, and he was going to put that shard straight into Walt's neck. Walt goes back down and strangles him with a bike lock. This scene establishes the brilliance of the entire show and Walt's smartness moving forward. It was this exact scene that made us all realize we were watching a masterpiece in the making. The battery. Chuck McGill believed he suffered from electromagnetic hypersensitivity, a condition where exposure to electricity caused him physical pain. His entire life was built around it. The Bar Association hearing where Jimmy's career was on the line was arranged specifically to accommodate Chuck's condition. Jimmy had one job in that hearing: break Chuck on the stand without it looking like he was breaking Chuck on the stand. He had Huell bump into Chuck on the way in and slip a charged phone battery into his pocket. That battery sat there for nearly 2 hours while Chuck testified confidently, felt no symptoms, and tore Jimmy apart in front of the committee. Then Jimmy asked Chuck to reach into his own pocket. Chuck pulled out the battery. He had been sitting with a live electrical source for 2 hours and felt nothing. Jimmy announced that Huell had planted it an hour and a half ago.
Hour and 43 minutes.
What happened next was not something Jimmy planned, but it was something he knew was coming. Chuck completely lost it. A rambling, furious tirade in front of the entire committee that trailed off mid-sentence when Chuck finally realized what he had done to himself. The room went completely silent.
The fact that the
I
defendant...
am not crazy!
The episode is called Chicanery. It holds a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and is widely considered one of the best single episodes of television in the entire Breaking Bad universe. Jimmy did not win the hearing that day, but he destroyed Chuck completely, and Chuck never recovered. The Tunnel. Andy Dufresne walks into Shawshank Prison, convicted of a murder he did not commit. He is quiet and contained and impossible to read. And from almost the moment he arrives, he is already thinking about how to leave. The plan works on 2 tracks simultaneously. The first is the tunnel. Every night, behind a poster on his cell wall, Andy chips away at the concrete with a small rock hammer that he got through his friend Red. The tunnel is 10 feet long, and he hid every piece of rubble in his pants, scattering it across the prison yard during daily walks for nearly 2 decades without anyone noticing. The second track is the money. Warden Norton was running a corruption scheme, using prison labor for outside construction projects and pocketing the profits. He needed someone with Andy's accounting skills to launder it cleanly. Andy became that person, quietly building a fake identity named Randall Stevens and funneling every dollar Norton gave him through accounts only Andy actually controlled. The night Andy escapes, he crawls through 500 yards of sewage pipe and walks out the other side with everything: the money and the fake identity, and documented evidence of Norton's entire operation, which he mails to a newspaper before disappearing. Norton opens his office safe the next morning and finds a note from Andy where the money used to be. When the police finally arrive at Shawshank, Norton shoots himself rather than face arrest. Andy spent 19 years digging a hole in a wall, while everyone around him thought he had simply accepted his life. Not even Red, his closest friend, had any idea. Fooling the FBI. Frank Abagnale spent years outrunning the one FBI agent assigned specifically to catch him: Carl Hanratty, pilot, doctor, lawyer. Frank assumed identities the way most people change clothes, and for years nobody could pin him down long enough to make anything stick. Then Hanratty finally finds him. He bangs on the hotel room door and bursts in with his gun drawn. Frank is in the bathroom and nowhere to go. He opens the bathroom door with a washcloth in his hand and immediately starts talking about the IBM Selectric printer on the desk and how Frank uses it to print fake checks. He introduces himself as Barry Allen.
My name's Allen, Barry Allen, United States Secret Service.
He tells Hanratty his partner is walking Frank to the car as they speak, points out the window at a random man on the street, and gives him just enough detail to make the whole story feel airtight. Hanratty asks for credentials. Frank hands him his entire wallet and tells him to keep it while he gets the evidence downstairs. Hanratty sits on the bed and opens the wallet. Every single card inside is a cutout from a magazine. By the time he looks back out the window, Frank is already gone. The bluff works not because it is perfect, but because Frank commits to it completely, without a single moment of hesitation, from the second that bathroom door opens. That is all for today. I know I should have made this longer, but I have my exams coming up, so I have to wrap it up here. If you want a part 2, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.